media.
Motherfucking.
All I ever seem to find in my heart lately. I'm starting to think that no one can save me. The darkness inside of my heart's not changing. I can see by the look on your face you hate me.
I'm on that love suicide shit, superhero, no sidekick. Wanna see dead inside, just look me in my eyes, bitch.
Here we are. Joe's gone tonight for everybody that is joining in with us, but we do have Xavier Muriel tonight.
Hello.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I don't know what kind of co-host I'll be because I've never co-hosted anything. But
Well, I mean, that's okay. I'll take care of that part, and
we'll see what happens. We'll just play it by ear, man. We'll just play it by ear.
Yeah, it's totally fine. We were talking about not being technologically I don't know, whatever word. Yeah, capable. And I was sitting here like, oh God, I have to share it here. I have to share it here. I have to do that. I was like panicking because I have like this 1 minute window and I'm like, I'm never going to get all this done.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a night coffee drinker too?
You know what? This is actually tea.
Oh, okay.
I drink tea in the evening. I drink so much coffee during the day that at sometime after around 7 or 8 o'clock, I got to stop drinking coffee because, this thing doesn't ever like to shut off. So there I am, like in the middle of the night, building a bike in my head or going over whatever in my head, and then I can't sleep. So yeah, it's at some point in time I had to stop drinking coffee. It's too late.
I just start in the morning and drink it until I just fall asleep again.
That's amazing. I don't know if I could do that, but I remember Jimmy, was like that. He could drink coffee from the second he woke up to literally he would have a cup and he'd finish it and brush his teeth and go right to bed. And I'm just like, dude, how do you do that? He's like, I don't know.
Jimmy's a special breed of person.
He's an anomaly, man. He's an anomaly. He the coffee and a pack or a carton of Marlboro Reds, and he was a happy man. So
yeah, didn't take simple. That's always
exactly.
now but I've got I tried to go a week without caffeine, so it's been these little sparkling water things and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And today I was like,
yeah, no,
I gave up. I was
back. I'm back on the juice, man.
I was sitting here trying to work, and I'm fielding phone calls all day long, and about halfway through, I'm sitting there trying to read my screen. I'm like, I don't even know my own name, much less this person's name. So I just put myself on break, and I was like, come here, coffee, let's do this. And my day got so much better from there. So, it works.
Exactly.
Is what it is. My dog's still making noise back there, but we'll just pretend that he's not. It'll be okay. So
right on.
You've been up to all kinds of stuff these last few. How long has it been now since you left the band?
I left Buckcherry formally in March of 17. I think we had our last gig as that lineup in January at NAMM of 17, and then we had some meetings and more meetings and more meetings, and then right around February, a friend of mine was like, "You owe your fans the right thing. You need to let them know what's up." And
there's Olita. Saying hello.
Love your face. Yeah, it was time. So I've been out of the band. This month 4 years, which does not seem like 4 years because when I left the band, I literally went on tour with motorcycles. I mean, I hit every event that I possibly could do the entire year of 17. Because when we were in the band, I mean, we would play all of the massive motorcycle rallies, Sturgis, Laconia, the Daytona Bike Week, but we could never do anything because we'd come in, we'd wake up, we'd do our stuff, we'd do sound checks, meet and greets, radio stuff, then we'd do the show, and then we'd have dinner, we'd have more meet and greets, we'd have friends there, but we never could go out and experience anything. I mean, we played the Buffalo Chip in Sturgis 8 years in a row. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until when I left the band that I actually got away from the Buffalo Chip and into Sturgis. Like, oh, there's a town here. Oh, there's like Bearby Mountain and all these other cool things. 'Cause we had never left the grounds, you know. So when I left the band, it was just on, you know, and I didn't want anything to do with music, you know. I just wanted to ride motorcycles. So I did the craziest, dumbest thing ever. I jumped on a 1913 motorcycle that had no brakes, no transmission, no rear view mirror, no nothing. It was the most unsafe. It was literally, you know, when you see those old timey movies of those guys going
Mm-hmm.
around that wooden track, you know, the drone, that's what we were doing. We were going around a track like that in New Smyrna Beach, right outside of Daytona, doing, you know, 70 miles an hour on glorified 10-speed tires, and it was the best time of my life. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. They were like, get on this, turn this, hold this button, and go that way, and don't hit the wall. Okay, you know, so I got to do the inaugural Racing of the Sons of Speed, which was put on by Billy Lane, who's
Mm-hmm.
a master bike builder and from the Discovery Channel days, and a really, really, really dear friend of mine. So, I mean, I threw myself at anything motorcycle related. And then I got invited to do a show to build a bike for a show in Galveston that was an invited builder thing. And that was literally the beginning. I mean, I had been into motorcycles my entire life. And even
Mm-hmm.
when we were on tour, Keith and I had multiples of motorcycles back in Los Angeles. And we were constantly doing things motorcycle related because that's what we needed to do to get away from Buckcherry and all the shit that goes along with that. So what what started out as a release for me turned into Providence Cycle Works, you know.
What takes
And
up all your time now?
yeah, it literally does. But I mean, you know, a lot of people always ask me, you know, well, did you quit the music business? And I didn't quit the music business because I still do music. I just had a record come out that Keith asked me to play on
Mm-hmm.
from Ricky Warwick, a singer from Thin Lizzy and the Black Star Riders, and Keith was producing it, and they needed a drummer, and Keith said, "Well, you haven't done anything in like 2 years. It's time. So get off your ass and fly to LA." So I flew to LA, learned the material, played the material, got paid for the material, and then that record literally just came out like a month ago.
Yeah.
So I didn't quit the music business. I just quit the Buckcherry business. Um, and it's cool because, you know, it was just time for me. I can't speak for Keith or any of the other guys because those guys are still doing what they're doing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they've got other members now. And as a matter of fact, the guy who is now their current drummer is a friend of mine, Francis Ruiz. He's an amazing
Yeah.
drummer. And he's a sweet, sweet guy, and he's just cool. Um, So there isn't, at least on my end, there isn't any animosity or any of that stuff. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I went through my spell right after I left about like, because it's like leaving a heavy relationship, you know. I mean, I was with those
Yeah.
guys for a long, long time. We were with
What,
each
like
other, well,
12, 13 years?
longer than that.
12?
We were from
Really?
'04 to
Yeah.
17, you know.
13 then?
So
Yeah.
yeah, which seems like 30 because we were with each other every single day. If we weren't, you know, recording, we were touring. If we weren't touring, we were asleep.
What was
So
it? Like 500 something shows on the
yeah.
first
hmm
album cycle?
Well, I remember we were just shy of going platinum. We had been out for 22 months
Mm.
on 15. And I remember sitting in the front lounge and Keith said, "We're almost at platinum and we're not going home till we get platinum." And literally we had already gotten the gold record at Irving Plaza in New York like 6 or 8 months earlier,
Mhm.
and the record was just going crazy. And we didn't go home, and then I think like 6 weeks later it went platinum. It's certified, and we went home there shortly after that. And that's when Keith and I made that documentary with Billy Lane, where we rode
Mhm.
from Florida to California um, on the bike that Billy had built for me, you know, my custom chopper. And that was literally in between 15 and when we started writing for Black Butterfly.
Yeah.
But, I got to see Stevie in Sturgis 2 years ago, and it was really nice. It was a
Yeah.
nice, just, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Glad things are well. Because look, at the end of the day, I don't want anything to happen to those guys that they can't provide for their families, because that's what they
Yeah,
do. That's how they
absolutely.
provide for their families. So um, the massive the masses out there wanting us to have some sort of feud and war, or blah blah blah, is it's stupid, and I don't have time for it. Neither do those guys. I wish them well. They're doing what they're doing, and I'm doing what I'm doing. Back in Austin now. I moved back from LA in 17, and it's good, man. And nobody can take that time away from me. Nobody can take, those records on the wall away from me. So I have, again, like we were talking earlier before we started streaming, we have those memories. We have those things that we can talk about. There's a lot of our friends that aren't here anymore, so it's
Only
cool.
Jägermeister can take those memories away from you.
Yeah, and then it takes somebody to go, yeah, do you remember what you did, dude? You were like hanging off this chandelier, and like, oh man, really? Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
I
cool,
think at one point in time, somebody's like, "Do you remember the bar in Oklahoma City with the saddles for the bar stools?" And I was like, "Nope." And they were like,
Nope.
"Probably a good thing." It's like,
Yeah.
"Whoo,
Yeah, there
uh-oh."
there's parts of full on tours that I'm still hazy on. Like, I'll run into somebody and they're like, "Dude, remember Nickelback? You were blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, okay, So those are the things that I don't miss, because you spend your entire life as a young kid wanting to be a professional musician and be a rock star, if you will, or whatever, and then you get to that point and you forget that, you know, you just forget, and you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And, you know, you don't enjoy what's going on. So, you know,
Yeah. And then, like you said, you get away from it and you look back and you're like, there's so many people that didn't
absolutely.
make it out of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people who couldn't figure out or didn't want the help that they could easily get via whatever avenue,
Mhm.
whether it's depression, suicidal, drug or alcohol related, or chemical dependency, or whatever it is. There's a multitude of them out there, but for every one of those there is an answer. There is help.
Mhm.
There's people who, like myself, I don't know how you feel. I'm not you, but I can relate to what you're going through because I've been there, so
Yeah.
that that's a huge thing. That I'm a really big component about, because when I have people come up and they're like, well, my son wants it, I'm like, have them read the warning label, because there's a whole lot of stuff to the other side of the TV than just the videos
Yeah.
and the all that stuff that I, as a punk kid from Texas, was just like, oh, I'm gonna go to LA, and it's just some of it is all that, and some of it is not. Even with the
Yeah.
motorcycle business, it's no different. The only difference between Providence Cycle Works and Buckcherry is a commodity. The commodity on one side was a CD, and the other one is a motorcycle. But it's still the same thing. Dealing with
Still all
people,
the travel and all the
all the
people and
travel. Yeah, and I said that not too long ago. I have a whole rig with the tent, and a big Sprinter van and merchandise handled by a huge corporation and all that stuff. And I remember going, hey, I wanted to get off the road, and now I'm on the road, but I don't have a bus or a driver. What the fuck is this? But
there's no
the
bunk. What's
yeah,
happening
there's
here?
no bunk. I can't lay down. I can lay down on my Sprinter next to my, one of my motorcycles, but it's just, it's it's a different life. It's a great life, but um, I'm very, very, very happy. There towards the end of my tenure in the band, I wasn't happy. I was a very miserable person. That's not why I picked up sticks in the first place. That's not why, as an 11-year-old kid, I wanted to play music. It wasn't about chicks or drugs or booze or fame, or it wasn't about any of that. It was about that thing where you're playing and you're connecting with somebody. And I used to look at you guys all the time down there and just like, man, this is bitching because like 9 months ago, it was just an idea that Keith was throwing around, and then Stevie did that, and then Jimmy and Josh. The next thing you know, it became a demo, and then it got on the record. You learned it, and we're singing it back to me. I'm like, this is what? This is weird, you know? But those are the things that I think about now, and I look back and I'm so grateful for it, because it's just like, that could have never happened, you know? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that literally, I mean, how many musicians do you and I know that still are in bands, still are in clubs, or were once something and now they're this? I never wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to be the dude that held on to it like this, because it was just, I can't do anything. I didn't want to
Yeah.
be that. And as much as I was creative with the band as a drummer and as a member, I'm equally as creative as a bike builder, because it's the same thing. I mean, I start with a frame and I put up on a lift and I have my coffee and I look at her and I go, okay, what are we going to do? Much like I look over at Keith and he'd go, well, try this here or try that there, blah, blah, blah. And the only difference is, you know, Don Henley said it, and I quote him all the time on this. Don Henley said in an interview, and he said, you know, when you're in the Eagles and you make a shitty record, you can kind of look around at everybody and go, well, it might have been Don Felder, or it might have been, you know, so-and-so, or it might have been the manager or the record label. He goes, when you're a solo artist, it's all you. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't have, you know, Josh and Keith anymore. I don't have Atlantic Records. I don't have all that. I have me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool because there's there's a certain gratifying moment where, when something that I build with just these two hands and guidance from a lot of guys that I know in the industry goes on to win some pretty prestigious awards and accolades, it's weird because it's just me. Whereas in the
Mm-hmm.
band, it was like, okay, there's Josh and Stevie and Jimmy and Keith and Kelly, and you share that little thing. Where with this, where it's just me, it's really freaky, you know, because it's like, do they really think it's that good? Or God, I
Well, and
suck, you know?
you've kind of been cleaning up with the awards here lately for these bikes.
You know, again, I don't know. I'm just a builder. There's a greater architect at work, and I just kind of do what I do, much like I did in the band. I was never formally trained as a drummer or any of that. I just literally sat down and went, you know, and it worked out where this has not without a lot of mistakes, you know, during
Mm-hmm.
my tenure in the band, much like this. Like, I'll try to make a tank and it just comes out like shit. You know, it's just like, oh, that looks awful. Throw it away, start over, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's cool, man. I mean, I speak with Keith at least once a week. As a matter of fact, I'm redoing one of his motorcycles. And he's super happy doing what he's doing. You know, a lot of people don't know that he co-produced every record that the band did. So
Yeah.
that's what he's doing now. He's producing
He's just
records, and
producing.
he's producing and he's writing with everybody, and he's super, super busy, which is great. And he's raising his son, and he's
See,
as
he's
happy
like
as
the
a
one person that I'm always like, what happened to Keith? Like, where'd Keith go?
right,
Like,
because he's such a low profile cat. He was
yeah.
never that, you know. We had a really extensive conversation about, I guess, 2 years ago, and it was about what his idea about the band and Josh was supposed to be in the beginning once they reformed. And he said to me, you know, Xavier, I didn't really think any of this was going to happen. He said, I thought we would, you know, get turned down by every American label. We went to Japan, we got our money, we made a record, and I thought we'd play a couple of shows and then we'd break up and everybody would go on their merry way. He goes, I had no idea it was going to do all this.
Mm.
And that's kind of the same way with my company, is that I had no idea. I was just going with what the next right thing in front of me, and something that I'm passionate about. And yeah, in the beginning, there was a little bit of denial and a little bit of like, well, if I don't look at that over there, maybe it'll just go away. And we all know that that's not the case. So I had to come to grips with a bunch of stuff. I had to do my own work on myself about that other life, that other guy in that band, because it took me a long time to realize that's just what I did. didn't define who I was as a person or a man, you know. So, and much like Providence, it doesn't define who I am. It's just something that I love to do. And even if this starts to be, if it starts to be unfun, if it starts to get to that point, I'm out. I'll go work at Home Depot and be just fine, you know. So, well, I don't know about Home Depot, but you know.
I don't know if you'd have a lot of fun there, but no, I remember, I think the last time I saw you was like 2015, and we were talking about some of that stuff, like kind of where the changes were coming from, and you just
Yeah.
didn't seem like you were having as much fun as you had back then.
I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that there was a feeling of a connection that something was changing, whether it was the direction of the band, the members, the material, the finances, you know. By that point, I was literally, because I think that was right about that tour that we were in Europe for 6 weeks, and I didn't know if I was going to make it back or make it through, to be honest with you, without being dramatic. But you know, I was literally physically, spiritually, mentally burnt out. I was absolutely, I was a zombie, you know, and I was getting up there, going through the motions, and then at the end of the night going, what am I doing? You know, and having conversations with other people that weren't in the band on the outside, and they were like, you know, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. So I can see how not really wanting to address that can lead into other situations that are, you know, a lot more catastrophic. But I think right at that time when, you know, you saw that was the beginning of what would be the not the end, but like a change, you know. And it was just time. We all of us were not gelling together, and it was really sad. It was really hard for me because I loved those dudes. They were closer to me than anything because I was with them every single day, you know. And we used to make fun of guys like the band, not make fun of, but we used to be in awe of bands like Seven Dust because those were the original road dogs. They were never home. They were always in the studio and they were always on tour. And then I remember somebody telling me, you know, right around 14, 15, 16, they were like, you guys just don't ever stop. You don't ever stop. You know, you're worse than Seven Dust. And I was like, oh my God, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a correct term, worse, but you know, it was to the point where it was just wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. And there was a couple of us that really, really wanted to step away, go away for a year, do something else, come back, be refreshed. You know, let's be excited to get into a room together and make another record, not literally land from the last date of the tour and go, okay, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Start. Oh my God, no, you know. So that's,
you know, when you put it like that, I think you guys actually did more shows on your first album than Seven Dust did. If not, it was pretty close. I know they were in the 500s too.
Yeah,
but it
was by the time it was all said and done with, we were, I think, at 612 by the time it was all said and done. And that was, you know, Josh never wanted to do, he would do 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, 3. So a whole week would go by like that because you would be on your first of 3 going, okay, I got to take it easy. I can't, you know, we've got 18 months under our belt, got to take it easy. You know, I can't blow my shoulders or this, or he's got to watch his voice. So you weren't really in the moment of that show. You were thinking about getting through the next 2 so you could have that one day out to be in your room by yourself with the phone off, you know, with like a zombie in front of the TV and room service, you know. So but you know, I mean, those were the things. And that was, you know, at that time we were a fucking gang, man. I mean, it was war. We went up against every band you can think of. The Seven Dust, you know, Non-Point, Godsmack, Motley, all of them. We went up against, and that's what it was for us. It was
Mhm.
war. I remember we were flying back from Europe to do that Kansas City festival where
Oh my God.
I was sandwiched between Shannon Larkin, who was from Godsmack, headlining.
Mhm.
We were direct support, and then Morgan and Seven Dust were right before us. So I was like, oh my God, all
Yep.
I need is like Tommy Lee to be on this build, and I can die and go home happy, you know. And I remember thinking, if one thing would have went wrong with that flight over the pond to that show, we would have never made it. And it was in front of like 47,000 people. And I remember
Mhm.
sitting in the trailer, everybody was laying on our suitcases, and we just done. But as soon as that, as soon as that intro music went on and we looked at each other, it was like,
Here we
here we
go.
go. Here we go.
Well,
And then, of
and you
course,
guys like it seemed like every year Kansas City, you guys sandwiched that in with something insane because you were coming back
totally.
from Canada one year,
Yep. We came back from Canada
and
one year. We came back from Europe one year. And I think the third year, which is the last one we did, I think we came back from Japan, because I remember like being on the flight and just going, I would do anything to just land and go home. But no, we had to literally land, go straight to the venue because there wasn't a day off. It was land,
yeah,
go to the venue. So
and
after
it was it,
flying 16
and you
hours.
were flying like right back to LA for something, and then right back out on the road.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, so, when all these grays down here, and I just shaved, I had a huge beard like a couple of days, but all these grays, that's what that's from. I earned every one of them. So,
It's like we have 6 hours. We got to be in Kansas City, and then we're gonna leave, and then we're gonna go
yeah,
back this way. And
yeah, and I remember a lot of times looking over at like everybody and just especially Stevie and Josh and everybody just like tired and like big puffy bags under their eyes, thinking this is not what I thought it was going to be. But then always remembering, there's 400,000 million dudes behind me ready to take my place at any given moment. So,
Mhm.
failure and giving up was not on the board. It was just like, we're doing this or we're dying. And a lot of times I thought I was actually dying while I was playing. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
It's like we have
So
6 more weeks. This is not gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah, 6 more weeks. Yeah, how much Red Bull do we have? Oh, we got 20 cases. Okay, cool, we're good. So
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, and I remember like because I met you on the Non-Point tour,
hmm
and
which
then
was the
it was,
first tour
mhm,
ever. You know, and
and it kind of spiraled from there. And before you guys knew it, it was like the smaller arenas, the bigger arenas. Like I remember like Halloween shows with Motorhead and stuff like that.
hmm
And then it just
hmm
kept going and going and going and going. And then the last time I saw you was in the same little club where I met you on the first tour. And it was
hmm
like, did you guys kind of feel like at that point in time, it was just like you were just getting
I think
done
that
with all of that?
for I had the best vantage point in the band because I was up top, so I could see everything and everyone. I could see their reactions. I could see their faces. I could read a lot of things that were going on while I was performing. But I knew that something was happening when ticket sales were dropping.
Mm,
The places that we were used to always playing every year, whether we were on a major arena tour and would stop and do a couple of shows like at the Starland Ballroom in
mhm,
Sayreville, New Jersey, and it would be sold out the second it went on sale. So when you start seeing those kind of things, that those tickets start to the ticket sales start to diminish, and then the merch sales start to diminish, and then the show up starts, you start kind of going, okay, what's going on? Are we
mhm.
past our prime, or do we suck? Are we old? All those things start going through your head. But for me, I just remember thinking, this is an indicator. This is a sign. This is, we need to back up and regroup and assess what's up. Um, and some of the other powers that be didn't want that. It was just, tunnel vision, and that's that. But I think that well, thank you, Derek. I think that, at least for me, I knew that there was something going on, and you don't. I don't think. I can't even really say as an artist, because I don't even really. You know, I just knew something was different. I could feel
Hmm.
it. I could see it. There was always the staples of our fans slash friends base that were always there, regardless of what was going on. Everywhere from Poughkeepsie at the Chance, to the Starland Ballroom, to the Empire Room, to Austin's Fuel Room. So there was always those staples of people, even in between major tours with Kiss or Motley or Nickelback or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but when all that started to go away, it's that thing that you kind of just have to look at it. Well, we started here, we've gone all the way here, now we're playing back here, and it's not selling out 4 times
Yeah.
in a year. There's probably something going on, but again, there's so many elements that go on with the band structure. There's managers and business managers, and everybody has their own idea and their take of how it should be or what it should be, or um, that a lot of factors come into play. There's always finances. How do we support our families? How do we feed our children? How do
Hmm.
we keep the lights on? So it was never a thing with, I think, any of us that we wanted it to go that way. But very few bands get to do that thing and stay up there. There's always your icons. There's your Aerosmith and AC/DC and Motley and whoever. But um, even those bands morphed their formula. They changed some
Hmm.
stuff. They did some different things, and maybe that would have worked for us. I don't know. But
Like, could
I
you
know.
could you really see like changing what you guys were doing though, like as far as like sound or like going a different
I,
route?
I don't think that you could change the way the band sounded, because we always wanted to sound like a rock band.
Mhm.
We never, ever, ever wanted to be anything other. That tour that we did with Nickelback, we used to get a lot of flack for that shirt that said "No triggers, no tapes, no tracks, no bullshit, 100% live." And it was the truth, because when we fucked up,
Mhm.
you knew it. Like, I remember
Yeah.
like fucking up myself, and Josh would fuck up a lyric, or Keith, or anybody for that matter in the band, and like you could see one of you guys down there go, "What was that?" And I'm like, I'd laugh, be like, "Ha ha ha," but it was
You're like,
real. Yeah, I don't think that. I know that as Keith, as the main writer of the band, he could never try to be something that he's not. He would
yeah.
rather leave the situation than go, okay, well, let's try more of electronica pop sound, and this
Oh
is
my god, I
happening right now.
can't even.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, it would
Like,
never
yeah.
happen. And I wouldn't do it, because that's just not a kind of drummer I am. So
Yeah.
I think that maybe for us at that point in time, that's how that needed to play out. Of the band has done what we did, and times are changing, music's changing, record labels are changing, all that shit. And it was just like, you know, but I don't ever think that we could consciously sit back and do something that we weren't, because it would
Yeah.
just be false, it'd be fake. You would know it, everybody would know it. And why? Better to just bow out at a certain level
Yeah.
graciously with dignity and honor, and go, yeah, I fucking left a nice little scar, like Nikki Sixx said, a nice little scar on the face of rock and roll, and be happy with that. Because I don't know too many of my friends from Austin, where I came from, that got to do that, that were blessed enough to do
Mhm.
that. I did. So, but again, I think that was a lot of the factors for certain members to leave, and to just seek out other things. I mean, I think that if we would have just tried to just, the term I always use is, try to beat a square peg into a round hole. I think some relationships would have been really, really strained, and with never a possibility of reconciliation. And
Yeah.
or anything like that, because that's what I think about a lot of times when I hear these band members that pass away and their other band members didn't have the opportunity to say, listen, man, that was then, this is now, I still love you, and I
Yeah.
wish everything. I could not imagine that. And every time I hear something that a famous musician or whatever has passed away, I think of my band, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful, and I'm grateful that I don't have that. I didn't have any horrid words with Josh or Stevie or Kelly or anybody, or Keith or anybody. It was just something that I had to do, something that Keith had to do, and Josh and Stevie and Kelly moved forward with Francis, and I don't even know who the new guitar player, and
I
yeah,
could not
so
even tell you the
yeah,
name.
and and there's a lot, and I feel really honored when people say, when you guys left, it's not the same. It doesn't have that thing. Well, it never will. For me, the saddest part of all of it, minus the brutal emotional tug of war that we all had with each other or independently, was that the fans will never hear that material played the way that was played by us. Not that
Yeah.
I'm taking away from any of the other new players, but there's a certain thing that me, Stevie, Kelly / Jimmy,
Yeah.
Josh, and Keith had together. There was
Mhm.
something that was inexplainable, and you can't reproduce it. It can sound similar, but you can't reproduce that thing. And I don't know what that thing is, but I remember when my old man passed in 10, and I had to go away
Mhm.
for a while and take care of some family business, and I came back, and they had a sit-in drummer on the Kiss tour.
Yeah.
And I remember the first show back, and I was absolutely an emotional wreck. I was just a mess. And we were in the dressing room, and I remember Keith looking over at Stevie and saying, that drummer was the fill-in guy. His name was Matt Logg, super, super sweet guy, an amazing drummer. He said, Matt was really good, and, took care of business. He said, but having Xavier back is like having those pair of Levi's that fits perfect in all the right spots. And I'll never forget that, because that's how I think about that, looking over and seeing Stevie doing what he did, and Josh and Keith and Kelly.
Well,
That
and it was even
can't,
different, like just between Jimmy, and it didn't change a
yeah,
lot between Jimmy and
yeah.
Kelly, but it was like
Right.
you could
But it
hear
was
a little
different,
bit
yeah,
difference because they were
because
different
you,
people.
different people, different elements, different styles of playing, Jimmy taught me so much about how to be a drummer that plays with the bass player. Don't worry about those guys over there. Let them do their thing. You need to be right here. And I didn't understand that for a long time. I was just like, oh, boy, spin my sticks, my hair is like this, and like, cool, let's have a drink. Jimmy wasn't like that. Jimmy was like, this is your job. This is my job. This is our job. This is what we do. We create this little atom and let those guys just do their thing. And I never understood that till I played with somebody else. And I went,
Mhm.
oh, that's what he meant, So as far as the learning, process and that whole time, it was absolutely amazing, because I hadn't listened to an extensive collection of Buckcherry tunes, and I can't even tell you how long, Sarah. And I was coming home from, I think it was Sturgis, and
I
it
saw
came on
that
my
video.
playlist, right? And I was like, oh wow! But then I started listening to the stuff that I didn't play on, like the first record and the second record,
Mhm.
with Time Bomb and the self-titled, and I was like, listen, and then 15 on, I was like, how my drumming had changed, how it had evolved, and how
Mhm.
more comfortable you could hear it, and the writing, and how Josh was singing lyrically, and it was pretty cool to sit and listen to that stuff and just go, forever that's out there. I'll be dead,
Yeah.
long and gone, and my kids or no kids or whatever, but that will remain forever, and
Mhm.
that's a really, really awesome feeling, so. But you know, we adapt and we evolve and we move on.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to, I mean, music is so like you said, there's cycles and it changes. And now you're seeing like a lot of the bands that you guys toured with and did all those big festivals with, they're kind of starting to reemerge in various shapes and forms. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, hey, they're that, you know, because it's like you look around one day and you're like, or you see a festival lineup and you're like, I have no idea who any of these people are. Like,
Right.
where did
Right.
all these
Right.
bands come from? And who are, or you'll see like one name, you know,
Yep.
and
Yep.
10 that you don't recognize at all. And now you're
Yes.
kind of starting to see those bands cycle back through it. It's like, oh my God, where have you
Yeah.
been? Like, this
Yeah.
is, there it
Right.
is. But, and you
The thing,
either stay with it
I
or
get,
you,
yeah, I get asked a lot, you know, what's the biggest thing that I miss not being in the band? Um, and for me, the biggest thing that I do miss is that connection every night, you know, whether I was
mhm,
either in it or whether I wasn't in it or whether I was feeling it 100% or whether I was feeling it 50%. I miss that connection of just sitting down and creating a beat that made people move and bounce and have a good time. And then seeing all my friends literally around the world. You know, I miss
mhm.
that the most. I don't miss all the other bullshit. I don't miss the traveling, the bad food, the attitudes, the drunken stupidity. I don't miss any. I don't miss the business meetings. I don't miss any of that. I miss, I guess, the social aspect of it, of the connection with, you know, for lack of a better word, fans slash friends, you know. So, but it's weird doing the motorcycle circuit, you know, which is, it has a circuit just like a tour circuit. You know, I start in March, I end in October, and that's kind of how the rock and roll thing works with festivals,
Mhm.
etc. So, a lot of the bands that I see at these motorcycle events are guys that we toured together. You know, Papa Roach,
Yeah.
Shinedown, stuff like that. So it's always good to just kind of like go and hang out with Barry, go and hang out with Jacoby, or, you know, I saw Morgan in Sturgis um,
Mhm.
the year before last, and I walked up, I stood right in the front in the pit, and LJ looked down at me. He's like, "Oh my God, Xavier!" He goes, "Former Buckcherry drummer has a company called," just gave me the biggest shout out. And I took this great picture with Morgan, and that was so cool to me because it wasn't like, okay, well, you're not in the band anymore, so you don't exist. You know, it was
Mhm.
really just, it was nice and refreshing because much like in the music business, there's a lot of fucking sharks and vampires in the motorcycle industry. So to be able to be at like something that I brought my creations to show them off and win some awards and then go and get back into music and watch Morgan, who's probably along with Tommy, one of my most influential drummers for me, um, just do what he does and go, fuck yeah, I still love that guy. And those songs, I become fanboy. I'm not like, I don't look at myself as a pure drummer with him. He made differently, but I look at myself as a fan of Morgan Rose and Seven Dust when
Yeah.
I hear Face to Face and Black and Terminator. And I mean, I'm just like, I'm like a kid in the front, you know, so um, that's what I miss the most is that, you know, being able to see people every year. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I took that for granted for a long time. It was like, okay, here we
Mhm.
go. Here's the tour across the United States. It does this, and then we go to Canada, and we'll be in Japan, then we'll be in South America. You know, I took a lot of that for granted, and I'm glad that I can look back at that now and be super, super grateful and appreciative of it. Because again, maybe that wouldn't have happened. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't
So.
know. I don't know how Morgan does what he did. Which, you know, I guess this time off has probably been pretty good for his body because he
Yeah, yeah. I
just,
mean, I think, you know, at some point in time, and I'm a perfect example of it. I mean, I blew my bicep off my bone. It's detached from my shoulder in Denver at a show, and I had to take a lot of time off in 16.
mm,
So as you get older, you know, as we get older, you know, you can't continue to physically abuse your body like that. Um,
yeah.
and guys like him, guys like Shannon Larkin, guys like Tommy Lee, and you know, all of us, you know, it takes a massive toll on your joints and your muscles and all
Mhm.
that. And again, the road lifestyle isn't the most conducive to healthy eating and
Yeah,
behavior.
there's not a lot of really
So
good, like Clint seems to have
yeah.
mastered like taking care of yourself on the road, but I
Hmm.
think everybody
Hmm.
else kind of goes into that.
Yeah, it
Whatever,
takes
I'll go to
I'll
Buffalo
eat the
Wild
cheap,
Wings for
yeah,
the sixth
wild wings
time,
and
or
yeah, six time at or have lasagna at 12:30 at night before you go to bed. It's and I didn't understand any of that for the longest time until I had to literally rearrange my entire system of how I lived on the road, and it was more mental than it was ever physical, because once I kind of wrapped my mind around, oh, this is how I think when I get off stage. This is what I do. This is how this happens. And then the rest just kind of organically fell into place. But for the longest time, it was not like that at all, you know.
it's like, are we going to Hooters
And
again? Yep.
yeah, yep, you start to feel the effects of all of that. And then when you try at a certain age to reverse that, it's 10 times harder. The body does not recover the way it did when you were 30 physically with whatever else you ingest. But it's and then I go back to riding the most uncomfortable motorcycles ever. I don't build stuff that's comfy and has bags and shocks and all that. I'm like straight up chopper dude. And I get off one of my builds after I've been riding all day in Sturgis, and I'm like, oh right, yeah, that hurts right there. Oh yeah, yeah, it's because I'm not 35 anymore. I think that ride that I did with Billy and Keith cross country, I think that was the last major ride I did, and that was 3,400 miles on a
Ugh.
rigid panhead. Which, if I even thought of that now, no, my kidneys would come out of my butthole. There's no way. I'd be like, no, I'm done. So, but
Yeah. I don't know how you did like I remember seeing like the videos of you doing the Sons of Speed stuff, and I was like, I probably ought to like text him and be like, hey, how you doing? Because he's gonna kill himself.
yeah, it was an interesting thing. And again, looking back on it, I probably would do it a little differently now, but I was so anxious to not be on the road to, enjoy and experience something different than the same old Groundhog Day bus, dressing room, stage, bus, dressing. And I think now I'd probably go, well, I should probably do some research on that and see if that's even safe, because they're not safe. They're absolutely horrifically not safe. But at that point in time, I didn't care. And much like you, there was a lot of people that were calling me going, dude, what are you doing? Somebody's going to call you in 2 weeks for a gig, and you're going to go out there and break your fucking leg or your arm, and you're not going to be able to play. And I was like, I don't care. I'm having a blast, and I did that for 3 or 4 or 5 races. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and let these younger guys who want to go 80 miles an hour, I'm going to go ahead and let them, because I wasn't about winning. I could care. I got passed in one race by every female rider. And I was just like, later, I'm like, do, because I didn't care. It wasn't about winning. It was about just having a good time. And because nobody had seen races like that in almost 100 years. And a lot of these motors that were in these motorcycles were pumps in fields at one point, so to construct a frame around a motor that used to be in a field as a pump for irrigation, and then put wheels on it and a chain and a sprocket and little handlebars, and that's insane. It really is. If anybody's listening and you go look at the stuff from Sons of Speed, you'll go, that's stupid. And not to mention on a concrete 35-degree banked track.
Hmm. See, like
So
the bike and everything, I was like, that thing looks like it's gonna fall apart, but okay, I could get behind that. And then like I see the track, and I was like,
yeah.
are you
And
trying to
then
die? Like,
on top of all of that, put 5 or 6 or 7 other lunatics next to you doing the same thing. Because there's no mirrors, you're tucked like this. So the second you look back, you're in the wall, because there's no steering degree on that. It's like, so you've got these guys out there that are just like, wow, I'm a win, and I'm like, later, dude, so
And
I
like
got to like my fourth race, fifth race. I was like, okay, I'm cool. I'm cool.
protective gear wise though, like there was not like nothing, right? Like
No, no.
helmet.
Well, back in the day, they had glorified, football helmets. They were leather. They just had a strap. There was nothing. You get some of but towards the end of it, those guys were modifying their motorcycles and getting excessively faster and faster. They were up to 80, 85 miles an hour. And imagine doing that on a 10-speed tire. So they got smart and started wearing full leathers with full gear, protective carbon stuff and full face helmets. The first couple of races, I was out there in jeans and boots and just like a leather jacket and like a helmet and some cool gloves. Not even cool, like cool looking, but like, okay, this has like plastic on the knuckles. So if I go down, I won't like lose my entire hand. There was a lot of really not tragic, but bad accidents. Rhett Rotten had a punctured lung and a broken rib and a broken collarbone. Josh from Moonshiner Josh from the TV show, I think he broke a collarbone, a shoulder, and his knee or his leg or something like that. So
Jeez.
yeah, it was insane. But at the time, it was so exciting because nobody was doing that. Nobody
Mhm.
had ever seen 4 or 5 pre 30 motors together in a chassis going around a track. And then like anything else, we as humans are like, oh, we got to go faster. It's got to be bigger and there got to be more people. And so what started out as 6 or 7, maybe 8 riders is now a field of like 45. So I was like, no, I'm cool,
Yeah.
thanks. Because I don't know. I could get a call tomorrow from somebody who needs a touring drummer, which would be great. But I can't do that if I'm laid up in a hospital with, broken paw. So yeah, that was my extent
Yeah,
of
that
that.
doesn't work for drumming very well.
Not so much, not so much. So,
I mean, I guess
but
if you had like a bionic hand, you wouldn't have to worry
well,
about getting tired.
no, 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 no. I mean, I think I could pull it off if I just taped everything to my paws, but that doesn't look too cool. So
It's hard to like spin the sticks and make it look fancy if you're
yeah, because by
like,
that time there's no spinning or fancy. You're just playing. You're like, okay, whatever.
yeah, it's
So
like, okay, I'm here, but that's about it.
yeah, yeah.
So what do you have coming up? Like what's
Well,
next?
just came back from Daytona Bike Week last week, and it was the first major rally after the pandemic. So, and it happened to be their 80th, so it was off the chain. I just finished up a build for a company called High Seas Rally, which if you
Mhm.
can wrap your head on 3,000 bikers on a cruise ship. I built the bike for their dialysis raffle for their dialysis fund, which is going to be a raffle bike because my brother's on dialysis. So ironically, the company was brought to me, or we were introduced from a girl who used to work for Buckcherry. She was our production assistant. Her husband is on the board, and they were asking questions of how do we make this, how do we grow this and make it bigger and blah, 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 blah. And somebody said, well, what about a custom Harley? And, Jason said, well, my wife used to work for the drummer in Buckcherry who now builds custom Harleys. So a couple of phone calls were made, and 2 or 3 days later, there was a visit here at my shop. And then a couple of days later, there was a contract on the table. And the bike was actually supposed to be given away last October on their
Yeah.
cruise, but because of the pandemic. So we set sail October 22nd to the 29th of this year out of Port Canaveral. And I brought a lot of really cool things to the table with some really great friends like Cycle Source, which is the magazine that I've been writing for about 8 years. I brought their media group on to handle that, and put together a package of some really bitchin' dudes that are great builders as well to bring their bikes on the ship. So you'll have like 12 or 15 amazing custom, not only choppers, but performance bikes. But leading up to the sale date is every other rally, like Myrtle Beach, Bike
Mhm.
Blues and Barbecue, Sturgis. So I'll be there with not only Providence Cycle Works, but also with the High Seas Rally as well to promote them. And
Did you
You know,
did you win something for that bike at Daytona? Did I see that?
I did. I
Because you
won.
debuted it.
Shit. What did I? Yeah. Best Big Twin at the
I
Cycle
was
Source
gonna say
Bike Show.
just so many of them now. You're like, I don't
No,
know.
I
I
no, I
won
don't. I don't. I
something.
just. Yeah. I mean, and you know, this is my office at home. So again, I sit back sometimes in the morning while I have coffee and I do some work or whatever, and I just look around and I look at all the Buckcherry related records, and then you know the awards for some of the bikes, and I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? You know, it's really bizarre, man. It's been a crazy ride, but again, you know, I'm still here to talk about it, so I'm grateful for that. But
Mhm.
so yeah, that's what we've got going on as far as Providence related. There's a couple of things that I'm working on musically as well that I don't want to talk about yet, but you know,
Okay.
I think it would be really interesting. You know, there's a lot of guys that are in bands out there that are avid motorcycle guys, like Ray Luzier from
Mhm.
Korn, the drummer, loves bikes, and a couple other guys. And and Mike Wengren, the drummer from Disturbed. Um,
Yeah.
I always wanted to build a couple of bikes for fellow drummers in bands. I thought that would be really a cool like angle that nobody else has done because truth be told, I mean, I don't know of any other motorcycle related builder slash whatever that came from the rock and roll world,
Mhm.
doing what I've done with Buckcherry. So I thought it would be kind of cool to just be like, wow, you know, a drummer building a motorcycle for a drummer would be kind of a cool thing, you know. So
Yeah.
um, we'll see, you know. But for right now, I'm definitely just super hyper focused on Providence and you know, taking it to the next level. So we'll see what
So
happens.
like, how are you feeling about this whole cruise ship like coming like this freshly out of the pandemic situation? Like those were kind of like that was like the hot spots there when it first
It
started.
was. I think that, you know, I mean, look, if things go south, it's definitely not going to be because of my hand. You know, there'll be other factors at play. I think that they, more than anybody or any entity or any company, is going to do damn near everything this besides selling their souls to the devil himself, to make sure that it is as ridiculously safe as
Safe.
possible. Like
Mhm.
I can't even imagine what they're doing, what their protocol is for right now. And again, it's still months and months and months away. So
Yeah.
they could get to July or August and go, we're not doing it. And I'd be like, okay, well now what, you know? So,
Mhm.
but I think there's a lot of fear. I mean, I don't know if it's so much fear as it is like concern because, you know, with everything that's kind of changing now and the vaccine and people going, okay, well, da 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 da. And again, you
Yeah.
know, that's everybody's own opinion, and for whatever it is that they want to do that's good for them and for their family. But I don't think that I don't think that the cruise line is going to like tolerate anything less than
At
98,
least like
ninety-nine
negative.
percent Yeah, just I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be
Negative
surprised if
test
they
before you can go or
negative tests, doctors, maybe like immediate rapid tests, 24 hours. I don't know, you know, but I can tell you this. If it's squirrely or sketchy, I'm not getting on it. You know,
yeah.
I just, you know, I have too much to do, and I've got compromised my brother, and then of course my mother's 82.
Mhm.
So, you know, but I have a lot of faith that by the time we get to that, it'll be a lot better
Surely.
off. We'll have a
Yeah.
lot more control, and maybe not. You know, maybe the whole thing may just get pulled, and again, all that stuff's out of my control, anyways. You know, I just worry
Yeah.
about right
Well,
here, right.
yeah, and there's music festivals. Well, right now they're slated
Mm-hmm.
for September, October-ish. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think people are
Mm-hmm.
kind of figuring.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I was really kind of surprised. I saw like Thomas Rhett announced shows at Billy Bob's Texas in May.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
I don't know
In
what kind
May.
of capacity they're looking
In
at there, but I
May.
was like,
Yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
But you know, I
Exactly.
I've seen that, like local and independent artists kind of starting to do little shows
Right.
like in Wichita and places like that. It's kind of starting
Yeah.
to pick back up there, but I didn't expect to see like a major label artist of any kind announce something
Yeah.
that soon, but
Yeah. I mean,
jumped
I
right
was
on
just
it.
hanging out. I was just hanging out with Jim Root from Slipknot in Daytona, and I asked him, what are you guys' plan? What are you doing? Like, we're not doing anything until 21 or until 22.
Mm,
And a lot of that has to do with a lot of other factors, but that's pretty much like, I even think Shinedown isn't doing anything till like 22. I know that
yeah.
a lot of the bands have canceled anything major because they want to be as sure as they possibly can be, which
Mm,
I totally get it. But again, you got, once again, now we're back to the financial aspect of it. Like, no tour, no money, no merchandise, no money. So you better have done whatever means necessary to set all that stuff aside to get through this rainy day. So,
I love
um,
what Seven Dust is doing with the like taking the full albums and doing like the
yeah,
live stream performances, and
yep,
they've got
they have
Seasons
to.
and Home coming up, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
what?
exactly. Which is two of my favorite records ever.
Mm,
So a lot of bands are doing whatever they can to make ends meet,
mm,
because, and I totally understand. And, as a touring musician, that was how we made our money. We didn't make our money on record sales. Very few
yeah.
and far between, and the mailbox money from former records, yeah, whatever. But
Well, and that's
merchandise,
even worse now. As streaming grows, that money.
way worse, way worse.
I went looking
So
for. I was in Kansas City with my son, and we walked into Best Buy. I was looking for like there's a CD player in my car. I don't even know why. I've
mhm,
still got my big book of CDs, but I don't carry it anywhere with me anymore.
right,
And there was an album I wanted, and I walked into Best Buy and I was like, "Where's the CDs at?" And the guy laughed at me, and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "We haven't
yeah,
sold CDs in I don't know how long." I was like, he's
yeah.
like, "But we have
Going
vinyl." And I was like, "You have
right,
what?"
right, right. So there's no more CDs because that's going by the way the Dodo Bird due to downloading and streaming. But the vinyl, resurgence is huge. I mean,
Mhm.
there are companies here in Austin that do nothing but specifically recreate vintage looking um, consoles, with the TV in them and
Yeah.
and a flat screen and like a record player and that stuff that we used to take for granted as
Oh,
kids.
that'd
I
be
did,
awesome.
those big massive, and their spendy is all get out, man. Some of those are like $8,000. I was like,
I'm sure.
what? That better be some serious fucking wood. So,
Well,
but
they
yeah, I
and
mean,
you like those things were I remember I had one given to me from like that somebody had picked up at an auction. They were just like, "Oh, it just needs a new something or other." And
yeah,
my dad was always really good at stuff like that. So I called him and he was like, "Well, let me find the stuff and I'll fix it." Well, then he ended up like he passed before he ever got to fix it. But I had this
mhm,
giant console record player
yeah,
that I mean, it took up like half my living room. My kid busted her chin open on it a couple times. I was like, maybe it's time for this to go. Like,
yeah. Maybe
I don't
maybe
know
it's
anybody
time.
that can fix it, but
Yeah,
like
I mean, if
now I've got the
I'd
little one.
I would love to have the one that I learned how to play drums on. I used to set my drum kit right in front of it with my back towards the turntable, so that I could put the headphones on and turn around and put, Motley Crue Shout at the Devil or Def Leppard High and Dry. And, if I would hit my kick drum too hard, the needle would skip. So that's how I learned how to not hit my kick drum so hard because I'd have to start over and put it on. But yeah, man, I mean, it's crazy what's happening with the evolution of music
Mhm.
and all that. And a lot of times I'm almost glad that I'm not in it the way that I was because it has changed so much that, man, I can't even imagine being a fledgling band just coming out trying to do the
Right.
whole rock thing. I'm just like, I. Now, granted, they have so much more avenues to do stuff with social
Yeah.
media platforms and YouTube and Pro Tools, and if you have a good set of mics and some compressors, and you have somebody who knows what they're doing to achieve great tones, you can make a record in your living room
Hmm.
and get it out to the masses via YouTube. But like all the other stuff with the I'm like, yeah, no, that's why I had somebody a while back like, dude, so if you found a really great band and wanted you to be in it, would you, as a startup band, getting in a van again and in a U-Haul trailer and going across the country? I don't think so, but you never know, man. I mean, I still love music for music's sake, even more now than I did 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to rekindle my love for just music, not because of anything else, but just to play drums with some other dudes that just love to play music. So I kind of feel like I'm on an even keel now in a balanced situation with the love of my music and the love of my motorcycles. And they cross paths all the time. I mean, Harleys have always gone with rock and roll. And it's kind of a no-brainer. It's kind of like Bud Light and baseball. So, but yeah, things are good. Things are good.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, we will. We've been on here for about an hour, so I guess we can wrap this part up.
See, that's what happens when old friends get together and haven't talked forever. Yeah.
I know, right?
So
well,
good.
and I'll cut this part here in a minute, but first I have to remind everybody, make sure you go visit our sponsor, fellowshipbrand.com. Gentlemen, you just shaved your beard. So, well, I mean, you still got a little bit there.
I had a massive one. So unfortunately,
I did.
I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. Fellowshipbrand.com, fellas. They are actually coming out with a tattoo bomb pretty soon.
Cool.
That is Diego Verduzco from former Il Nino. That is his company. He is kind enough to sponsor us. So make sure you guys go check them out. Mike says, great podcast. A lot of respect for you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank everybody for watching tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for
I'm going to roll the outro video. You can hang out if you want to. And I'm going to cut this show. So thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Joe will be back because he's slacking on us. Have a good night, everybody.
Well,
I don't think it, I thought it, that's different. I said what I said.